I learned very quickly that being angry with anybody for something not working is a terrible idea. Why aren't people knocking on the door of your company to come work there?
I feel like a lot of companies are lacking purpose-driven individuals.
Before we went there, my dad called me and asked me, "What are you going to do this summer?" And I said, "I'm building a Finnish sauna in the desert." And he said, "Well, that's just silly."
Okay, so here we are again, back in the studio for another episode of FLT Game Changers. I'm joined as always by my fabulous colleague, Kelly Kiadora. How you doing, Kelly?
Hello, everybody. I'm doing well. How are you? Just came back from summer vacation.
I was in London for like 3 weeks, and it rained every day that I was there.
Typical London weather.
Yeah, so I had a good traditional British summer, but I didn't have, I would say, like the Finnish equivalent. I didn't get like a muck in a lake and a peaceful, tranquil time and all the rest of it. So I had some summer. How about you?
Well, I have been in the Mediterranean, so I'm a little, tanned. So I did not have any rain. Lots of sun and sea, some vitamin C. So I'm ready to go.
I mean, jealous. I'm totally jealous. There were some swear words that popped into my head there, but I'm very glad that you're relaxed and that you had a fun and some sunny summer. So when we started the Game Changers, we start to think about, what is it that leaders need support with? Where can Finnish leaders or leaders in Finland improve? And we've talked about a lot of different topics. One of the key topics that I think most leaders actually overlook as they go on their leadership journey is defining who they want to be in the end and who they want to become. And so today we've got a fantastic guest whose name I am running up to in my mind, Joppe Quaedvlieg.
Perfect.
Wow.
Guys, you have no idea how much pressure there was to get that. No.
Awesome name.
Yes, awesome. Joppe is here with us today to tell us a little bit about his perspectives, his experiences in Finland, and his perspectives on leadership and also defining what you want. Joppe, how was your summer? How are you doing?
I've had such a beautiful summer. I love living in Finland, and every year I've been here, the summers have been so beautiful. The summer vacation style of like sauna and barbecue, it's the best. And this year I made a vow to myself that I would be out as much as possible. So a lot of barbecues, picnics and all that, and I managed actually so far. So it's been blissful this whole summer. Really, really nice. Yeah.
Every day in London, my family and I checked the weather back home, like Helsinki. It was like 25 degrees, 26 degrees, sunny, clear.
The weather has been beautiful here.
Yeah, it's almost tropical at this point. I think. Yeah.
So nice and relaxed, so actually that sounds like a very Finnish summer, right?
Very Finnish, yes. I mean, I've been here for 10 years and slowly turning more Finn every day. Yeah.
Good. Hey, well, I mean, on the subject, as you're turning more and more Finnish, do you want to give yourself just a bit of an introduction for our listeners?
Yeah, of course. So I've been here about 10 years. I really fell in love with the country, and people often ask me why, because a lot of other people, they're like, "Why do you like it here so much?" Because it's so dark and cold. But this country has so much to offer. I've never been at a place where there's so much opportunity if you kind of know where to find it. And that's also where partially my passion comes from, to think about psychology, to think about how to create opportunities, and then specifically how to use leadership and or self-leadership as a way to do that. And I've been working towards this point in my life now for so long, because for the longest time I didn't know what I wanted at all. I was one of these people like, got asked when I was 16, what do you wanted? And I wanted to play video games. And now, because of my past experiences, specifically in Finland, I kind of figured it out. For instance, just as an example, one thing that has to do with that, in Finland, I found the local Burning Man community. You guys know what Burning Man is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we organize art events once a year. Some of us go to Burning Man and we build something there in the desert. So it's a real desert. There's nothing there. Like it's empty. It's just, what do you call it again? It's alkaline dust instead of sand. And you have to bring everything. And you take, 30 to 80 people there, all from Finland. So that needs to be organized. And that's where I learned true leadership in a way. Like, how do you get 80 people in the desert when there's nothing there and build a Finnish sauna, which is absolutely madness if you think about it. Yeah. So
wait a minute. A sauna in the desert.
Yeah. What's really cool actually. There's a architect bureau called JKMM. We asked them if they could design it. I can show you a picture later. Yeah. And they designed it. We had a specialist in building within our community, so he knew how to actually order the wood and all that, and how to build it, how to saw it, how to drill it. Then we brought an actual Finnish stove and the stones from Finland all the way there. And one of my favorite stories is that before we went there, my dad called me and asked me, what are you going to do this summer? And I said, I'm building a Finnish sauna in the desert. And he said, well, that's just silly. Which it, of course, is, right? But I think why it's so interesting to look at leadership in that particular case is because before that, I worked in a company that did an event. We used to organize an event called Arctic 15. And that's my number one experience of getting people to move forward towards a collective goal, right? And it was very it's a difficult word, hierarchical in a sense. But it was in many ways driven by money, right? As a lot of companies do. Makes sense, right? Yeah. Companies need to make money. But then to switch from that to building this sauna in the desert gave me a whole different perspective on what you actually need in order to move people forwards toward a collective goal so you can make something that's bigger than yourself. And ever since, I haven't been able to let it go. So I obsess about this nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, you should. There's actually a really sort of, I don't know if it's profound, but there's a good learning case in there, right? Which is that a lot of leadership and a lot of companies have jobs or leadership positions or teams that have intangible knowledge-based work. But if you're going to lead something where you have a specific dependency on logistics, that's an incredible learning experience, right? Because that's when particularly things like hierarchy come into play, because you have a list of equipment, a list of things you have to carry and transport, and companies you have to work with, and schedules and timetables, and when things go wrong, you have to adapt. And if you're really hierarchical.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest difference was that I learned very quickly that being angry with anybody for something not working is a terrible idea. Let's say,
newsflash.
Yeah, because we need to solve it. And I at some point realized that we can be upset with each other later, but now we need to rock this. We need to do this. And I feel really strongly that one of the biggest differences is compared to companies is that, and the same thing actually also was for the event business, was that you're working towards this goal. Whereas a lot of companies, for instance, I worked for this company that used to do web development, there was no end to it. It just went on and on and on and on. And at some point, we're not made to think like that. We need something to work towards. And then I feel like what a lot of people and companies do is they think, so we need to set goals, right? But setting a goal doesn't make it a collective interest. So what I'm curious about is that you take a CEO and C-suite and management, and you ask them the question, why are you here? And what scares me a little bit is that when you talk to people in privacy, they will tell you often, I don't really want to be there. And I don't understand that. And I also think that starts with hiring employees. Most of the time, and maybe people have a different opinion on this, but this is what I see. There's a hole in a team. A company isn't looking for the best person to help them achieve their goal, somebody with same values. They're looking to somebody just fill that hole. The biggest companies, they understand this better. they go like, oh, we need somebody there. They're hyper organized. They are often already, before that whole starts to exist, they already know we should start doing something. But the small and middle big companies, they don't really do that. So there's this constant state of kind of panic. And then they fill up this hole with just a person. And then there's this whole thing called an application process. And I'm just going to call bullshit. It's so much, it's terrible. Like, you can look at almost any job advertisement, and I'm already getting sick into my stomach just looking at, like, we're looking for a person that is very enthusiastic, that can work in a team, but also individual. What are you? I don't understand it, right? So, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to sit here and complain about what doesn't work. What I'm more interested in is what then works, but specifically also what is realistic, right? Because I can be all utopian and talk about we should all follow our dream, but they still need to make money, right? That's very much a part of it. So I'm curious to find people and companies that are not afraid to look at their own business and say, what if we actually start asking the question to people, why are you here? Do you want to be here? If not, I'm not going to get upset with you. I'm not going to immediately think we should get rid of you. But we're going to then figure out what is it that you would want to do. And then we're going to offer you that. But that's not something that I see a lot, if that makes any sense.
I really liked what you said about how companies are profit-driven. Speaking of holes, I feel like a lot of companies are lacking purpose-driven individuals.
Yes.
So what is your advice, for example, to companies that are looking to kind of change the current landscape from profit to purpose?
Thank you for the question. It's a really important question. I would start, first of all, to think first about companies that are just starting, because I used to work in the startup world. And in the startup world, you see a lot of people that do really have a mission. Like, there's this startup, I forgot what it's called, but they are trying to introduce edible insects because they want to help with solving the world's food problem. Yeah.
I've tried them. They're actually not bad. They're quite good.
They're on a mission, right? My COO, when I was working at Arctic Startup, he had a mission. He really wanted to create something. And that's necessary. But what matters a lot to me is, can you verbalize it in such a way that your C-suite and your co-founders and your employees actually know what you're talking about? Because if I start saying, our company creates better sustainability, okay, but doesn't really mean anything to me. I might have a similar feeling. However, if you can really put into steps how that looks to you, why you care and where it comes from, then it already becomes easier to follow you as a leader, right? And that starts with stories. And the beautiful thing for startup people is, if you get that story right, then you already have the half of your pitch ready for pitching competitions, if you ask me, right? Okay. Then you also set out a path, a structure, a strategy on how to keep that mission in the middle of everything. And I think this is where it often goes off the rails, because money always comes as a problem. We don't have enough funding. We can't pay our people shit. And then everybody panics and everything becomes about sales. And then all of a sudden, all the 7 people in the startup are now doing sales. Terrible idea, right? Now, that's not easy, but this is why I say the earlier you start, the better. And then why I say strategy is because you want to facilitate these values, and every decision can then be made based on the values. Now, here's the thing. People know this, but they don't apply it. And if you have your mission properly straight, it will actually make it much easier to make decisions. But that also means that you'll learn to say no. Let's say that you, for instance, find an investor that's interested in your company, but you realize that they're in it for the money, not for the mission. Maybe say no. Really hard, gonna hurt, right?
It is, yeah. It's hard to say no to the money. I also think there's a strange game, like, so it would be nice if the application process was more about finding good people and they were honest, because I think a lot of job applications, they have two types of like misinformation. So there's first of all, the stuff you have to put there to compete with other companies. So you have to say we're sustainable and we're equitable and we're fair and we're diverse. Most companies aren't, but they have to say that stuff because other companies are saying that stuff. And so that's why it gets into the job description.
Yeah, it hurts my heart.
Then the second thing is, it is quite painful. But the second thing is like they also have to disguise the state of the company. So like steep learning curve means like we're screwed. You have to start selling as soon as you get here. Yeah. But there's like lots of little different things like that. And I wonder if there was a job ad that said like, you know, we're looking for like a business manager. Cash flow is not great. The inventory is not great. Our quality levels are poor. Our customer retention is poor. Come and help us fix that.
I think that'd be great.
I think it would be. I think it would be. It would be good, but you'd deselect a lot of the population who are looking for jobs.
Yeah, but you don't want them, right?
That's true. I think that's true.
My favorite analogy is the analogy of dating. So,
oh boy.
Yeah, I think it works great. Like, let's say that I am a job seeker. And I've gotten a bit desperate. I can't find it's not working, right? I go to a club and I meet a woman and I say, hey, you want to get married? I'll do anything you want. I'll be anything you want. We immediately know that's right? It's a terrible idea.
Red flag.
It's 3 a.m. The bar's
Same
closing.
thing.
Lights are coming
Let's
on.
say that I am a person. I'm like well balanced. I know what I want. I have a mission in life. I meet a woman and I go, hey, would you like to date me? And she'll say, yes, I'll do anything you want. It's the same thing, right? You go like, what? This doesn't make any sense. So both the company and the potential employees, it only works long term if you want commitment, loyalty, if people know why they are there. But that's what I mean with people are just filling up a hole on both sides, right? The job seeker, but also the employer. And this here's a thing that I like to say that I find rather painful, which is this. Why aren't people knocking on the door of your company to come work there by themselves? Imagine that you have no job advertisement. Why? That doesn't make any sense to me.
We used to do it. Didn't we? Like in the, like, I mean, I'm going to now show my age, but like in the 90s, you would send out your resume and your application letter. Exactly. You'd put like a thing like to the personnel office, like I like your company. I'll come work for you.
So let's go with, I love this analogy. Let's go with dating again. I think that what happened is that job seekers and companies, it has turned into Tinder. So the companies, they're kind of, and this is subconscious, right? They're there basking in their own glory, and they say, everybody wants to come work with us because we get 100 applications, 200 applications with every job, and we only want the best. We want overqualified people, right? So they're kind of like really beautiful women on Tinder. They get overwhelmed. There's so much choice. But then the job seekers are like, in a way, like the men. They're just swiping everything, what they can, right? Just seeing if they can get a hit. But even if you get a hit, does this sound like a good idea? Sounds like a terrible idea. Big companies, again, they understand this. Big companies do have people actively approaching them, right? But if I am a job seeker, if I want to work somewhere, and I used to work as a career counselor, right? Somebody would say, I want to work at Nokia. And I would simply ask them, and this would happen 9 or 10 times. I would ask them, why do you want to work at Nokia? And they would say, because then I can work remote. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, no, wait. Why do you want to work there? And they would look at me like, what do you mean? It's a good company. Okay. Why? And they would have no answer. So you don't want to work there. Or maybe you do, but you don't know yet why. Right? Same thing goes for the companies. They haven't looked at the opening in the company and haven't thought, what are we actually missing? But even worse is that when people would approach a company and go around the job advertisement process, some companies nowadays will just even say, no, just apply through the website. So that also means that recruiters in companies, they're so overwhelmed with the 200 applications for every job that even if somebody would make the effort to come to the office and say, hey, I really love what you guys do. I would like to have a chat and just feel out what I can do, they will say, no. That's
because the process, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's a real missed opportunity. And I've been thinking about this. I'd rather have a person that's less qualified but motivated than somebody who's qualified but doesn't want to be there. And that shows then another issue, which is this. If a less qualified person comes but is highly motivated, what do you have to do? No, you have to train them. But nobody has time to train at small and middle big companies. Big companies, again, they figured it out. That's why they're big companies, right? But you have a middle big company of 100 people. A good person comes in that is willing to learn, and they're not taught because everybody's busy. Always busy. That doesn't make any sense. And that then brings you back to leadership. If you're a leader, why are you working all the time? Does it make sense? Well, it makes sense because, you had a team and somebody left. So now you're doing 2 jobs. Then somebody else leaves. Now you're doing 3 jobs. It could be something like that. There's plenty of reasons.
No, most of the time, if you're in a leadership position and you're doing more work, it's more like last year we made tons of money. And then we went to the investors and they were super happy. So this year we want to make more money.
Right.
And so you have to do basically all that you did last year, either with a lower budget or work harder.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's usually what leaders are almost always the guys who pick up the slack when there's not enough resources.
Yeah. And what I find interesting is that if you look at the numbers, it is absolute madness. Actually, I have some notes. I think you're going to find this interesting. So do you know what quiet quitting is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, have you heard of it? Yeah. So quiet quitting means that you have people in your company that work there, but they're not fully engaged. So McKinsey did a research. Listen to this. This is absolute madness. So in a random company in general, you have actively disengaged people, 24%. That's a lot. And that means that the people they're not doing any work. They might even be sabotaging the work.
Yeah.
They're gossiping. They're not doing tasks. They're not finishing anything on time, and so on and so on. But not engaged, so actively disengaged. But then you also have not engaged, 63%.
Yeah.
And those are people that they come in, they do the minimum, and they leave. That's a total of 87%.
Yeah.
Leaving 13% of your people actually doing stuff. How do you get people engaged? Well, you ask them, why are you here? But if they cannot answer the question honestly, because they're going to be punished, they will not answer you honestly.
Yeah, I think, for a long time, there was always a discrepancy between like corporate engagement surveys, which would usually punch out favorabilities at like 80, 90%, everybody's happy. But then you ask random people in the street, like, are you happy in your job? And the rates were always like 40, 50%. So if the employer's asking, it's like, oh yes, we're totally happy. But if it's a random person in the street, you're like, no, I would change my job in a heartbeat.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you said earlier, Joppe. Like, when you're out in the public and you have to do these things and answer these questions, they're not really honest. Yeah. But when you do one-on-one, you get the real answer.
Yes. I noticed this a lot that there's plenty of bureaus that will figure this out in your company by doing surveys and whatnot. What I don't see a lot is I would do qualitative interviews, right? Keep asking people kind of the same questions over a period of an hour. Eventually, they will start telling you. And what I've seen a lot is this. So, for instance, there's this company, and there was a guy there. He was one of the best in what he does. Whenever stuff wasn't going well, whenever there was a big problem, they would ask him to fix it, and he would. He was this one-man army, very impressive. He was a bit intense, but he was a very cool guy, actually. He started to complain. He was saying, hey, guys, this is no longer working. We need to change. We need some creativity. We need new input and whatnot. Nobody listened. You're not... This person is telling you there is something not right here. And another way to see it is to simply look at the turnover. why are people leaving all the time? And then I would ask the CEO, so how happy are people? And he would look me dead in the eye and say, everybody's happy. That doesn't make any sense. One of your best people is, and the beauty was he wasn't complaining. He was saying like, hey, we should change this. He would make presentations on how to do that. And he was ignored. What are we doing here? This doesn't make any sense. And this quiet quitting, by the way, think about this, cost you per annual salary 34%. Imagine on 100 people or 1,000 people, that's a lot of money. So even if you don't want to do it out of loyalty, you can save the money. And that's probably less money than it costs you to hire new people all the time.
Absolutely.
But companies, it's like weird. They almost refuse to look at numbers. It's like really strange.
They do look at some numbers. I think it's a question of which numbers they look at and which ones they take seriously, something like that.
Although I do see a change, I feel like people are starting to wake up kind of to the importance of these topics and how to engage them. However, it's still a little bit of an old way of doing leadership that's in the way. Yeah, I think.
If you think about the old way of leadership, is that particular to Finland? Like, what have your experiences been of leadership in Finland so far?
Let me say one thing first. One of the reasons I fell in love with Finland is because it's one of the most kind places to be amongst people. People are extremely respectful. And the reason I say that when you look at work is because there's a hierarchy, but you can, have a friendly chat with your boss, your manager, your C person, and people are really open to having a cup of coffee maybe with you or hear your ideas. I also think there is a relatively good balance between meetings and action. I mean, I come from the startup world, so I still think it's pretty slow, but all in all, I think there's a lot of movement forward. And leadership really knows, like, let's take care of each other. So there is coffee and fruit in the office. You can take your sick days. Nobody complains about you not being there. The work-life balance is amazing. It's just mind-blowing. Salaries are high in general. Doesn't even really matter where you are, whether it's working as a cash register person or working at a big company like Nokia. And I really appreciate that leaders, they at least want to listen, right? And there's space for that in meetings, and there's a high understanding of, hey, we should try and be a team, we should try and be a collective, a community, so to speak. And that's not something that you see everywhere. It's actually kind of mind-blowing here, I think, yeah. It's even to the point where I remember people complaining. I was like, why are we complaining? This is pretty great. Yeah.
Well, so then you must have a very open schedule if leadership in Finland is so idyllic and straightforward. Where can they get better?
Yeah, exactly. So, however, there's a difference between being open to discussion and actually using it. So, for instance, almost every company that I've been here or worked with, they'll say, whenever an employee has a problem, they can come to us and talk, right? We want them to say what doesn't work. But I've also seen almost every company not listen to it, right? They're like, oh, yeah, great. Let's put that somewhere on a piece of paper, and then nothing really changes.
About it.
Yes. And one of the main reasons why that happens is because a lot of companies are always busy trying to put out fires. We need more money. We need to save money. And then everything else is kind of forgotten until Christmas comes along and we have to have a Christmas party. And then they throw, 20,000, 30,000 euros against it. And we have the best Christmas party we've ever seen. Right?
That's a tough problem. We could fix the problem you got, or we could have a party. I mean, I don't even know where I go.
What I wish for people to understand is that if you're a leader, like, let's say you're a CEO, imagine that you take one day, just a day, and you can experiment with this. You can try it out. Go to the office, clear your calendar, clear it completely, nothing to do. You go through the office and just have a conversation with people. Hey, Bob or Sandra or Ina, come, let's have a cup of coffee. Probably first they will be a bit freaked out. Why are we doing this? Maybe they think they might be in trouble, right? And probably they will also say, I can't, I'm busy. But help them out. You say like, hey, listen, let's take a 20-minute, whatever. Let's sit down. Sit down, could be with one person, could be with a few of them. And then start a conversation, a real conversation. And the tricky part is that you cannot do it because you want any results. You cannot do it because you want to create loyalty. You can only do it because you have real interest in who they are and what it is that they want. Because you know how there's what you call the yearly conversation with your manager.
Yeah, the performance review.
Performance review, right? You get these questions, right? Like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What should you be working on? Whenever I've had that, I never prepared that as an employee. I just made up shit when I was there.
Yeah.
And I think most people do, because it's not really part of anything, right? So when you're sitting there and you're having this casual conversation, you have to help people to understand we're not being monitored here. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just really curious to like, hey, in the company here, we have this mission. Sorry. We have this mission. What do you think about this actually? Does it resonate in any way? What doesn't resonate with you, or why does it? Why are you here actually, And that's really tricky.
Yeah. And there's two things. So, for a lot of leaders that I talk to, I don't know if you're familiar with something like problem maturity, right? So if you're talking with a subordinate or a group, anybody you can pick up from any level in your organization, spend 20 minutes and have a coffee with them. The thought afterwards is really like, what kind of problems do they have? Do they have like basic hygiene? Like, is there no coffee, or is the chair broken, or does the computer not work? Are there systemic issues like the systems don't catalog customer information correctly, or we always fight, or the systems aren't used correctly? Or do they have like higher order concerns about the ethical nature of your business or sustainable practices or whatever? So whenever as a leader you have those kind of conversations, you should always have in the back of your mind that sort of assessment of, what everyone's always got a problem or a gripe. The question is, what level is it at? Because if it's at that high level, you're in. You can fix a chair, you can buy more coffee. But if it's like, I don't believe in the mission, then you've got a sort of significant thing.
So what comes to mind, so let's say you do this a couple times, right? And you have to do this a couple times because everybody has to get used to the fact that they can be honest with you. Because I wouldn't be. I would be like, I'm not going to say what I think. I don't want to get fired, right? So you have to teach them that I'm not going to use this against you. And for that, you need repetition and time. And this could be like half a year easily. And that means that you're going to ask them, and this is so simple. You ask them things like, okay, so in order to do your job in the best way possible using your skills, what do you need? And then they're going to say, I don't need anything. And then you have to be specific, right? Do you need any equipment?
Yeah.
Oh, well, actually, my headphones are broken. Let's say they're in sales. They need headphones, right? Okay, we can get you that. Do they need any information? Well, actually, I need information from Sandra. She hasn't been giving me that for 3 weeks. That's on me as a CEO or a manager, right? Do you need any location? So you go through specific. You ask them very specific, because we tend to go like, "What do you need?" And then the other person freezes. What's too much? What? But be specific. So could be information, location, budget, any of these things. But you have to ask it consistently and then provide it. Right? And this is where it goes wrong, because if I stop asking, now we're going to go back to the beginning again. They're going to lose trust. But if I systematically provide you with what you need or an alternative, right? Maybe we don't have budget for new headphones, but we can get you secondhand. Or maybe we have something in a drawer, anything really, right? Okay. So now they start to trust you. When that has happened, then you restart the conversation. Hey, I would like to hear why are you where you want to be? There's a high chance that quite a lot of people will say, well, actually, I I do recruitment, I am in accounting, but I would like to try sales. I would like to also do office management or whatever. Again, what most CEOs or managers will do, they might go like, oh, let's do this. Blam, now you're in sales. And then this other person like, wait, what? This I don't know where to start. I'm scared. I'm gonna fail. So then you would have to coach them. And then of course the question comes, do you have time for that? Or does anybody else have time for that? So you need to plan that. So you need a strategy for that, right? Doing that is very scary as a CEO or management, because let's say you have a company of 100 people and 30 people say, I want to be somewhere else in the company. Holy shit, that's a lot of work, right? But imagine the fact, just imagine the future, a year from now, you've managed to do this. You've trained these people. Don't be afraid they're going to leave. They're not going to leave. They're going to be loyal to you. When we talk about, this feels like family or commitment, that's what they mean. That means that I'll stay. You provided me with purpose. You coached me. You trained me. I love being here. Why? Even if a company would offer me more money, why would I leave? If I'm a manager or C-suite and I'm afraid that people are going to leave, then they're going to secretly resent me for working there.
Yeah, it's 100% true. But the thing that I was thinking about is helping people, let's say, find that goal. So it's somebody who comes here, I work in accounting, I want to do sales. Okay, that's fine. Most of the time, though, I think people, they don't have a good resolution of the thing that they want. And if you're a CEO, it's quite hard to help people find that thing that they're looking for, or the thing that they want to be. Do you have,
Yeah, okay, well, I'll be plugging myself here right now. So thank you for that. So for that, you need tools, right? Yeah. Preferably. And this is why I developed a tool that I call descriptive communication. The tool of descriptive communication is a way to help people define that thing that they want or need. But I need people in companies and managers and C-suite people to understand that might not lead to an answer that you want. You might come to the conclusion that out of 100 people, 10 people actually don't want to be at your company. But this is a good thing. To go back to the analogy of dating, why would you want to be with somebody that doesn't really want to be with you? Doesn't make any sense, right? So then you could help, if you have that conversation, you could help them. Let's help you move on. Right? Does it make sense?
It does, yeah. How does it exactly work? So
the descriptive communication?
Yeah. Well, so let's say Kelly's, got her heart set on Olympic swimming.
Well, if you want to, we could actually try a little session.
Okay.
Yeah, would be okay?
Let's do this.
Yeah. So the good thing is that with descriptive communication, you don't have to prepare anything. You don't have to make anything up. So I'll show you. It's actually rather simple. So I'm going to ask you a difficult question. All you have to do is answer. But you have to promise me that you will answer.
I will answer.
You either answer or you guess what the answer probably is. And even if that doesn't work, then you make something up.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Also, I have to give a little disclaimer. This might be uncomfortable.
All right.
Sometimes, actually quite often, saying what it is that we want and need can be really difficult. And I will be kind of pulling on your words because I'm going to help you get it out. I also might sometimes interrupt you and ask for a pivot. You'll see. Yeah. All right. However, if there's anything you really, really don't want to answer, you don't have to. Okay. Right? But I need your help to do this. It's going to be quite simple. All right. But then you'll see a result pretty quickly. All right.
Oh boy. Yeah. Let's do this. Am I sticking to Olympic swimming?
No.
Or?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Then I'm going to start drinking.
So if we would do that, if it would be like a hypothetical, it wouldn't work.
All right.
Right.
Let's be real.
So also, last thing is there is no right or wrong answer. I don't know what I need or want to hear. Okay. It's only what you answer. It's the main important thing. Okay. Right?
I'm a little excited.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's go.
Good. Okay. So the very simple but difficult question is, what is that you want?
I want to have a job with purpose.
A job with purpose. Okay, really, really good. What purpose would you like to fulfill?
I would like to fulfill something bigger than myself, something that will last way after I leave.
And what would that be?
Helping people achieve their fullest potential
With what?
with whatever they want.
Be more specific.
Well, this is hard.
It is. Yeah.
So people can get better, like with relationships with people. They can get better professionally.
No, don't help her.
Sorry. Okay, I'll go back to drinking. Sorry.
Okay, so I would like to help people fulfill their potential for
Yes.
improving their life, whether it be with their careers or with their families.
Very good. Okay, I have a question now.
Yeah.
Something changed. Did you feel that?
Was there a shift? A bit, yeah.
Yeah. Did you see that?
Yes, because I paused and had to really reflect.
Okay, just so you know, I don't know if you saw it, but I saw your body language change. You went from a little bit tense to less tense. Okay, let's continue. Why do you care?
I care because I know what it feels like to struggle.
There you go. Very good. Can you give me an exact example? What's your oldest memory of this?
My oldest memory of struggling, maybe I can kind of point it towards the first question, having a job with purpose. I've had many jobs, that focus more on profit, more on, the company's goal, and not really aligning with my own goals, my own values.
Very good. Right. Okay. I'm going to ask you the same question again.
Okay.
Tell me more about what it is that you want for other people by helping them with this.
The goal is peace.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So I love this because it's very different to say, what do you want? I want to help people to reach their goals. Or I say, I want them to find peace. Phew, just giving goosebumps here, right? You see the difference?
Yes.
All right? Do you feel different now?
I feel at peace.
Right? What I love
Really,
about this, you're smiling, your eyes light up, you relax way more, right? Okay, so this is the point of descriptive communication. By going into the details of what it is that we want to do, what it's for, where it comes from, we start to realize, hey, that's me. I really care about this. It's no longer a pitch, it's a mission, right? Okay.
Literally coming from the core.
Exactly. Yes. You become alive. You go like, hey, I can maybe do this. So a little follow up.
Okay. It's not over yet.
Yeah.
Almost.
So, what is one step that you haven't taken yet that you could do in order to get closer to that goal?
Start my new job, which will be on Monday.
That's already happening. Pick something that hasn't happened yet.
Go to where the people are that need it the most.
Okay, where are they? Or where could you find them? Or how could you find them?
Well, in the context of Finland, since I am a part of a nonprofit organization that focuses on this immigration in Finland and international integration, I would go there because they do need help.
Okay, and what would you do? What is an actionable thing that you could do? One thing could be small, could be big, could be anything, could be a phone call.
Establish a partnership with you to
There you
create
go.
a bigger community.
There you go. Thank you very much. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So that's it.
Fabulous.
That's how simple it can be sometimes. If I may ask, how was this for you?
Well, I like to be in uncomfortable situations, and I definitely felt it, because I didn't know what to expect. But it was a nice exercise. I think that a lot of people can really benefit from this descriptive communication.
And what's interesting is that, this is just a very small example, but imagine you're doing this for an hour, or imagine doing this with a group of people. So you could have like a startup. You have 5 people there. Because let's say you have 5 people, and then you ask this question, why are you here? And people think, oh, my co-founder must want the same thing. And you realize, oh, shit, there's very different things that we do or want. And that's can be beautiful, because then you also start to realize, hey, wait a minute. So you're more interested in growing the sales. I'm more interested in growing the mission. That's amazing news.
That was, by the way, just well done as a drinking observer.
Bravo.
No, it was really good, and I did see. I think for those that are only on audio, you missed a little bit about the body language and the rest of it, but there was some real, I think, probably progress is maybe how I would call it. What I would say from the perspective of maybe like a leader or a CEO is that I think that's almost impossible to do from a position of authority. Like the CEO themselves couldn't do that with their subordinates or with their founders. It would be a bit awkward, be a bit difficult. What I would say though is that if I was in the CEO position, you need people who have gone through that process.
Yes.
Right. So people who know who they are, where they're going, what they want, what motivates them. Because there's so many examples that I can think of leaders that I've talked to who haven't done the work yet on where they're going and who they want to be. And if you haven't done that, it's really hard to organize sort of collective effort consistently.
So I would also say that if somebody wants to try this in their company, right? Let's say they hire me to come by. They have to understand that I'm not there for the company. I'm a terrible salesperson right now. I'm not there for the company. What I mean by that is this only works if the employees and management, if everybody opens up to me. Therefore, I cannot pick a side. So whatever company wants to try this, they have to understand that the result that will come out is real. It's going to be super honest. And you might not hear what you want to hear. And that's really hurtful. It's not easy. If you have a company of 100 people and you realize that 10 people are not in the right position and 3 people really want to leave, that's difficult.
But let's see, off the cuff, you can do that same exercise for an imaginary person, right?
Yes.
So if you think about the problem you started with the hole that we're filling in the application process and the jargon that goes into the description.
Exactly, yes.
If you're a leader and you can articulate the value and the motivation and the techniques that you want in the position you're looking for, if you can do that exercise that you just did with an open position, you will be able to put out a job ad that will get the one that you want.
Yeah. So this also works one-on-one with the CEO, right? Sit down and ask the same questions. Why are we here? And then it'll help them. The beauty is also, it's not about coming up with things you don't know, because you knew this already, right? We're talking about what's intrinsic, but there's no vocabulary yet. So almost no CEO or management is just there. They started for a reason. I help you to make that verbal, and then you can use that to tell your management and your employees. You will see an impact on the day itself. People will go like, oh, we're here for a reason. It makes a huge difference.
Well, finding out why we're here is always going to make a huge difference. We've been here with you today, Joppe, to learn this exact lesson. I have to say it's been moving. Kelly, how you doing? You okay?
Yes, it's a little emotional. I'm just kidding. It has been fabulous, and thank you very much for your time. That was
pleasure.
That was a great experience.
If people want to reach out to you, if they want to contact you, where can they find you? How do they get in touch?
Yeah, so one place could be LinkedIn, and maybe you can put a link for me with the podcast. And another place would be articula.com. Jesus Christ, I can't spell my own website anymore. artiqula.com.
Yeah, great, fantastic. fantastic. We'll put all the links in the notes for the show, so find us there. I think the picture, the cover image, will definitely be a sauna in the desert. But Joppe, thanks very much for your time. This
My
was
pleasure.
awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks.